Hello, and welcome to Gnoggin. With E3 coming up, I thought I'd do a small history lesson for all of those not quite familiar with what E3 is, and how it became what it is today. I just found out what its history is myself, and I think it's pretty interesting. E3 actually wasn't E3 at the beginning. Way back in the late 80s and early 90s, there were not many gaming conventions. Most game publishers back then would go and display their wares at tech trade shows. Before E3, the common trade show that game publishers would visit was CES, or the Consumer Electronics Show. These shows were more for new hardware or electronic appliances, from new TVs to things like dishwashers and vacuum cleaners. It kinda sucked for software devs. But during the 90s, we saw a huge boom in the gaming industry, and many publishers decided that they needed their own trade show, especially after CES had even gone as far as to putting Sega and other big-name game publishers in the back of the building, even behind the porn vendors. Yep, you heard that right. According to Tom Kalinske, CEO of Sega of America, the CES organizers used to put the video games industry way in the back. In 1991, they put us in a tent, and you had to walk past all of the porn vendors to find us. That particular year, it was pouring rain, and the rain leaked right over our new Genesis system. I was just furious with the way CES treated the video games industry, and I felt we were a more important industry than they were giving us credit for. Sega decided not to return to CES the following year. I mean, would you? So as you can see, CES and other similar trade shows just weren't meant for games. Games were kind of their own thing, their own little corner of the industry, and over time, more and more game developers and publishers were simply getting fed up. Over the following years, more and more companies stopped showing up to these trade shows, and so, eventually, in 1995, the Big Three, Sony, Sega, and Nintendo, all banded together and showed up as key speakers to a new trade show specifically meant for gaming in the United States. It was the first E3. And it was quite successful, with almost 50,000 attendees. This wound up becoming the largest trade show debut in history, due to the already large fan base that had grown at the CES shows. And this is a bit of a side note, but it's still very interesting. In 1997, E3 hosted a Quake competition called Red Annihilation. This is widely considered to be the first national gaming tournament, possibly the birthplace of esports, and the winner was Dennis Fong, who the Guinness Book of World Records states is the first professional gamer. As the years continued on, we saw more and more growth, and this growing trend continued up until 2005 and 2006. In 2005, they started to broadcast the event on television via G4 TV. Remember that? Oh, those were the days. I'm glad they're over. But of course, due to it being broadcast live, it had its first decline in attendance. So in 2006, they decided to restructure the whole thing. They made the event private and invitation only. Even game developers needed an invitation to attend. Many people criticized this move and complained directly to the ESA, the Entertainment Software Association, who were the organizers of E3. They complained that this change would kill indie gaming, and while for a time it certainly hurt indie gaming, we see now that this wasn't the case in the long run. The first E3 after the restructure had only 10,000 attendees, a shockingly low number compared to the first one. Then in 2008, it had an abysmal 5,000 attendees. It seemed like E3 was dying, so they again restructured in 2009. They opened the event to all qualified computer and gaming audiences. This greatly increased attendance back to about 41,000 the next year. E3 continued to grow with some low years due to the economy, but it wasn't until 2013 that it changed again. Nintendo, one of the Big Three, decided that it wasn't worth all the work, so they opted to reduce their floor show to a smaller Nintendo Direct. This format helped them get to the audience they wanted without having to make a large-scale production show. It wasn't until 2015 that E3's attendance went past 50,000 again, almost a decade after the 2006 restructure. And in 2017, E3 restructured again, opening itself up to the public. And that's its history. So now with its history in mind, let's ask the question, why? Why have E3? Why not just have everyone release information when they want? Nintendo doesn't even really go to E3, so why should the other publishers? Why do they waste millions of dollars on just having a presence here? In the world of online streaming that we are in now, why not just have a yearly stream that isn't on the same day as your competitors? Well, it's all about responses. Let's take a generic store like Target or Walmart. They aren't game stores, but they do sell electronics and some games. They may not look like they would care about E3, but oh, they do. Due to their setup, they can't just have every single game in every single store. They need to be selective to what they sell as to make the most profit. That's why you normally find mainstream, largely popular games at these big chain stores. But what about those hidden gems that they do sometimes carry? Why would they bother having these not so well-known games take up shelving space? Most commonly, it's because it's not that unknown, because it had a decent presence at E3. You see, E3 is more than a gaming expo. It's one of the largest gaming events in the United States. These retail companies send out representatives to the show and use this event almost as a periscope to see into the future. You can easily tell when a game is going to be good, and you can most certainly see when games are going to sell well. These people sent by the big retailers aren't just typical employees that do market research either. They are professionals, both in market research and in gaming. Having your game displayed at E3 can make it or break it, even if it's just part of a Microsoft montage like Stardew Valley. It's a very dangerous game to play with that many eyes on your game. Having a good show for your game can help propel it into even greater heights. Let's take a game that recently came out, Yooka-Laylee. This game was shown at E3, and it was very popular at E3. The presentation played on your nostalgia and made it look like it would be a great game for all ages. This was such a great revival that it even went as far as to being sold in mass by Walmart and Target. This isn't a game made by some huge company that can afford a whole marketing team. This is an indie developer whose whole marketing was E3. But it's not all happy and jolly, and that's what I mean when I say it could break a game. Let's talk about overhype. A game can look phenomenal, but when it comes out, it could look like this. Think of No Man's Sky or Watch Dogs. Hype is a dangerous force that game developers love to use without actually holding to their promise. Publicity is very big in America. What's on the TV at any given moment will change what a consumer is thinking. And I know what you're saying, well, I don't watch TV, or I don't listen to commercials. Well, you may not, and that's fine, but it's not just TV. When E3 rolls around, you see it in everything, from TV to the newspaper. If you are anywhere close to Los Angeles or New York City, you may even see billboards all over the place. You hear conversations about it from coworkers, from fellow students, from random people on the street. Word of mouth is going around everywhere. Plus, it puts video games in the media again, but in a positive light for a change. It's saying, hey, look at all of the innovations we have in gaming now. I mean, when was the last time you saw a positive spin on gaming on mainstream TV news? Plus, E3 isn't just about the games. When do major publishers announce new hardware? E3. When do publishers announce a first-party accessory? E3. When can you find out about all of the new independent accessories? E3. It's not just a convention, it's a show that displays all of the new tech in the business. Long story short, E3 helps the gaming community, both directly for the mainstream retailers and for all of us to see what the future may hold for our favorite hobby. I wish you all a happy E3 this year, but please remember to use your noggin and not get overhyped. No game will ever be as good as some people hype them up to be. Oh, that sounds like a good video topic. Well, subscribe and hit that bell to be notified of when that video comes out. So, I'll talk to you all next time, and I hope you enjoyed this brief look into E3.